Counselor Hinckley,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Present.
Counselor Palmer,
Here.
Counselor Studebaker,
Here.
Counselor Wilson.
Here.
It's good to see you all.
All right, join me for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have any agenda adjustments, requests? Okay, we'll kick right into it. Any public input we know of? Okay,
No
I
one
haven't
signed
gotten
up.
any emails.
Yeah, no one signed up.
all right.
One thing, we were listening on YouTube, and the volume isn't coming through at all.
Right now?
It wasn't when I left, and so if everybody could speak up, it's.
Is there any way to see volume level at all, Marlon?
Yeah, I've been monitoring it. It's not, I got bumped it up about as much as I can.
And is
The
it-
biggest issue is bandwidth. At the moment, we're dropping quite a lot of frames.
Okay. Well, then just use me and we'll make sure everybody has a chance to speak alone without interruption. Okay, so we will move to section 5, presentations. Given the whole COVID lockdown and we're trying to highlight some positive things going on in the community, I had a blast and looked at my notes from the last year and looked at all the positive things. And we did that really nice Citizen of the Year award for Jan last year. And so thought it'd be fun to hand out awards to a lot of deserving people that didn't get that award. And so I'm just gonna go through them really quickly, and then we'll be able to hang the plaques in City Hall. Jessica, you can figure out what makes sense. And then I made little certificates for people. And right now, we're getting ready to go through a transition. We have an election, we have 2 new people coming in, 2 people dropping off. We'll have another election in November. And just wanted to share some positivity with everybody. So the first one is for Carol Holm. So it's a Mayor's Gold Medal. And then it's personalized for individual contributions. And so in her case, she took it upon herself to unite 27 organizations in town. And that's the main gist of her award. And then she's also helped, she's attended the most meetings as a citizen. She's really helped us kind of sharpen our game. And then,
Yeah, Carol.
and then Stacy Thomason, I don't know if you know Stacy, but she's the one that she planned the fundraiser for the Oddfellows, that spaghetti and jazz night in February. It was a hit, and so many people were there that wouldn't otherwise get out and about in the town. So, and it helped the Oddfellows. It's been kind of on our peripheral goals to help them out, and she actually took it upon herself and did the most successful event there in decades. It's really cool, and it allows us to do other things with that facility. Yay, Stacy! And Ed Miller and Ed and Brad drove around, got a bunch of footage, and Ed has been taking beautiful pictures of Gold Hill for decades. And just got his play published and all that, but for his beautiful photography, and he publishes these calendars and books. So thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, thank you.
And Lorraine Parks, she was a counselor for years. She holds the record for the most votes from Gold Hill citizens, somewhere in the high 300s. And she made us understand that last year. But so she served the city in many ways, and then most recently has taken on the disabled fishing platform project. And so it's early in that project. We still have to get through permits and all that. But thanks, Lorraine.
Yeah, Lorraine.
And Gold Hill Can Do, there's a bunch of folks that have helped skate park. Oh man, all the things they've done, and their group of 60 or 70 volunteers. And so I think they were one of the runner-ups for Citizen of the Year last year as an organization. So this is just a nice little thing, just to recognize their good work. So thank you, Can Do.
Yeah.
Myers Sears, she and her husband were the recipients of the Citizen of the Year award. And but since then, she not only turned around those 4 businesses that were just attracting a lot of complaints, a lot of problems in town, but she worked to get them filled with new businesses. So I think she holds the record for the most new businesses. And Janet has been one of those. And we have a new surveyor in town. We have the pet groomers. And what else? The brand new laundromat. They put in all new machines.
Mhm.
And so those are great services. So thanks, Jan.
Yeah.
And I think one of our unsung heroes, Tony Wilson, he's a city employee, takes care of the parks and so many things. And there's this idea within an organization, this corporate citizenship, where you kind of go above and beyond with your job. And he is always talking to people, getting people to volunteer, taking on projects. Goes out of his way to estimate projects, cost projects, and get things done. So this is a special thank you to Tony Wilson.
Yeah.
And Jessica, do you mind holding up Jessica? Is there, Janet, or Jessica? So this is a little thank you, and it's got a quote from the auditor on it. And so in one of the letters to the council, the auditor, can you read that?
Sure.
What did the auditor say?
The city's newly hired city manager and finance director, Jessica Simpson, has alleviated my concerns for the city's financial and record keeping significantly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think that in itself is the award, but it's kind of nice to have something you can put in your scrapbook, something we can hang in here. So 10 years from now, we've got a city manager, and Jessica's running the state or whatever.
Not going anywhere.
These can help serve as reminders of everything that everybody's done during this last year and a half, or really the last 10 years, that we've achieved in the last year and a half. And so then we have Janet's. All right, thank you for your contributions to the city's downtown core by creating a business that brings joy, arts, and crafts to so many people and improves the city of Gold Hill. Thank you for serving citizens as Councilor Wilson and sharing your experiences in human resources as well. And then all the councilors have specific things that they've done, as well as being a part of the team that got things rolling again in this town. And so you all share a couple of these things, and then there's some specifics to you.
Yay, Jen.
Yay.
Yeah.
And then if you look, Tom, on yours, hold it up for the camera.
And just, keep moving the camera.
Yeah, and Tom,
Okay.
Tom, the number one thing you brought is focus. You have been able to just focus this, audits, and your practical common sense has been a godsend many times. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Volunteering.
And Brad, yours has a bunch of things. You and Ron both worked hard to take care of our elderly and get the what do you call it? The community center. The community center started, and that's a spark that's going to spread, and it's beautiful. What else is on there? Yours was the first one that I read.
Coordinating fire abatement awareness.
Coordinating the
Yeah.
fire abatement has been huge, and you reached out to the schools, you've been a mentor to the AVID program, and all these things, we're reopening these relationships with the kids we haven't had in however long. So keep up that good work, it's
Good stuff.
really important. And Ron, you took the time to remodel, improve communications here. What are all the remodel projects you did?
Yeah. You were passing around down out there for a while.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, I helped Tony quite a bit, so.
Yeah, and you really pushed hard to kind of end our search for the city manager role,
Mhm.
and you put it on the agenda to go ahead and talk about it, and we got it done, and so you saved us months and months. So thank you. And Rob, yours goes back in time a little bit, to thank you for all the work on the paths that people love in town, and your contributions as interim city manager and being part of this council. And, did I miss any? I think that's it.
Danielle.
Oh, Danielle. Oh, yeah. And Daniela, your mission as a counselor has been to represent your constituency, but also really develop a technical, high-tech infrastructure. And we were able to meet and operate during COVID. Our communications are better with citizens. And so thank you for just taking that on, and thanks to Marvin as well. And you have improved the town.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And Steve, yours, you've been working on this Whitewater project for 20 years.
Oh.
And
Overnight success.
so you finally got some support to start on the permit process. There's all sorts of things you're working on, so shortly we'll get an update from you, but congratulations.
2028.
All right, that's all I got. So 5.2 is Mike Lee, proposed lot line adjustment to city property on 2nd Avenue.
Do I go up there?
To
Yes,
the podium, please.
And Mike, state your name and address too.
Well, my name is Mike Lee. Good evening, everybody. My address is actually in Central Point, but I represent a client that has property in Gold Hill. I'm with Cascade Sotheby's International Realty out of Jacksonville. I guess I'll hand out these maps, so does everybody
I
want to see
gave
what I'm
everybody a
talking
map,
about?
yeah, we have.
You did?
maps.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'll just hold it up when I.
I'd like to see.
Okay.
Oh, this is pretty.
I've got a
Yeah, I
diagram
mean,
here,
it's
but not much.
satellite image, it's all highlighted, and so, my client is Mrs. Lundberg, Henrietta Lundberg. She owns, just as you come across the bridge on the right or to the north, pretty much all those lots except for the Dollar General building right now. She came to me and mentioned to me that it is she's liable for people using her property, and in particular that little triangle. As you guys have known, and I used to park there growing up. I grew up on Old Stage. Everybody parks there and goes down to the river. So she said, Mike, I'm thinking about developing it. I'm thinking about putting no trespassing signs up. I'm not sure what I want to do. But she said she'd like to offer it to the city first, and I said, okay, well, what'd you have in mind? And if you look at it adjacent to that little triangle, the city owns 0.08 of an acre, which it's there.
A sign.
So she wanted to just sell that little triangle, and I kind of explained to her that, you can't really sell part of a lot. It has to be its own tax lot, but you could sell a lot line adjustment. So I did a little research, and what I found was some comparable properties. Well, I should just tell you outright. The lot line that she's offering is for $135,000, plus the fees involved for the adjustment. That number is based on some commercial property that's zoned similarly in Talent. There was a quarter acre on Talent Avenue sold in April 2020. It closed in April 2020 for $135K. And then also on Siebert Street in Talent, about a block away, it was a 0.14 of an acre. That one sold for $125K. I should also mention that just down from the Figaro's building, the Dollar General building, that lot, it's just under an acre. She sold that one for $340 to an investor. And then I'm not sure if he put the building on there or how that all happened, but that investor later sold that property a year later for $2.1 million. So the value of those commercial lots definitely is there.
Question?
Yes.
So our existing lot is 0.08, and how much would be the acreage of the one that Ms. Lundberg is proposing?
Square footage.
I don't have square footage, but I have approximately 0.25 of an acre. That's what that triangle measured out as.
And what was the acreage on the Dollar General store if we're talking about that as a comp?
It's Well,
Is that a quarter of an acre?
no, that was
No,
0.9 of an acre.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I believe, don't quote me exactly, but it's about 0.9 of an acre. So,
So Mike, what is the ask?
the ask is offer it to the city to see if they are interested in purchasing it, or purchasing that lot line adjustment.
Okay.
For $135,000.
And I think we looked up the fees are only $400, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be interested in
That's the one we
subsidizing
turned
the
into a
lot line
parking
adjustment.
lot.
But I don't think 135 for that position, you know, that's, you know, the Dollar General is almost an acre. This is a fourth that size.
The Dollar General was 340,000.
Yeah. So
And then
divided by
a year
4 is
later
what,
sells
70?
for two
What's it
mil.
gonna be used on?
Parking lot.
Yeah.
Parking.
This is a quarter of the
29.
size.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
each
almost
part.
an acre and this is a quarter of an acre.
Yeah.
Now, that also, I mean, there's no power or water to this proposed lot. So it's undeveloped. It is a good location, but it's in Golden Hill. So I think to compare it with small acreages in other towns, that's like comparing us to Ashland and Jacksonville.
Correct. and I-
Can we do a counter on that?
Well, she is pretty firm with that,
Okay.
but, you know, just like a car for sale on the side of the road, I mean, you can counter, it's more of a suggested price. But, you know, I should mention with comparables, there's nothing in Gold Hill that has sold, other than over by, I can't remember the name, but Jim Estramado's pit, essentially. That was a commercial piece of property, and it wasn't really comparable because it was outside of town, and the size was so much different. And the reason I bring that up is sometimes you can look at properties and go square footage, you know, or homes and say, oh, it's sold for $200 a square foot. That's really only in certain situations. The larger the property.
You're talking about vacant property. That's sold.
Well, I'm just talking in comparisons in general. It's, you know, looking at what the city could do, and frankly, looking at what the city wants to do in 2028, you know, that piece could be a very powerful piece for the city. You know, and as a parking lot, a fee parking lot, even if I was talking with Henrietta about it, there's so many different things that, you know, that's not up to me or her, you know, she's just offering it and saying, if you wanna rent it out and put you know, a raft rental outfit there or something, it's up to the city.
And Mike, how much time does the city have to think about it?
You know, I don't think we're not pressuring the city, you know, nor are we asking for an answer
We
today.
probably need a couple months to
Yeah,
brainstorm.
And I understand too, it's the time for all the budget and everything. So, you know, take as much time as you need, but, I mean, as the temperatures warm up and everything, obviously people use it, and then she's gotta decide, okay, am I gonna actually fight everybody to put up no trespassing signs to protect herself? Cause she's, you know, she's a nice gal.
Can we get a Sotheby's office built there?
You know, we just opened up our office in Jacksonville, and I'm gonna leave a stack of cards, so if any of you have thoughts on selling, I might as well throw that out there.
Sure.
Call me.
Don't miss an
But-
opportunity.
In fact, I thought I wrote you a letter, Mr. Lowe, recently.
I do, you mentioned the one other commercial lot that was comparable. So the Estimado pit, what was the acreage and the cost on that?
I can't, I'd be misspeaking by saying, I guess, but it was quite a bit more acreage,
Yeah.
and it was quite a bit more cost as well.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things I do is take dirt and put things on it, and that's basic information that we've got to have.
Yeah.
If the only other commercial is that, then we have to have this number.
And the reason I didn't include it or even really focus on it was because it was out of town, wasn't necessarily where everybody's always at, and looking at the use too, with all the other city property in the river, it just made sense, you know, to Mrs. Lundberg that the city could use that as a parking area, you know.
And do you mind asking her time frame? Like, do we have
Sure.
6 months to think about it, or is she trying to dump it right now, or?
You mean you want me to call her right now? Like, what do you think?
No, just cause it's
Yeah.
not part of our goals.
And I'll
We
email
haven't even
Jessica
started thinking
or-
about it
the city. Yeah.
But it's,
Yes,
it's
time.
worth deliberation.
Yeah, and I mean, for sure, I'll get back to you on that.
All right, any more questions for Mike?
Oh, I have one. Is your brother named Travis?
Sure is. My oldest brother.
Colonel?
Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel.
He was a spot. He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, cool.
Small world.
Yeah,
I was
no.
just looking at him going, he said Lee, and I went, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, I've got 4 brothers, so, yeah.
Mike, thanks so much.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks,
it.
thank you, everybody.
Peter, are we gonna do anything on the proposed lot line adjustment? Aren't we going to weigh in whether we will go with that? Because I think either way, whether we buy it or not, I think it makes a lot of sense that they've come to us.
Well, right now, this is just
That's
a
not on the,
proposal.
yeah, that's not on the agenda.
And so, it's.
Negotiations
it's-
started.
Yeah, the negotiations start.
Well, that's a separate thing though. They still
No,
want a lot line
it's not. He
adjustment.
wants to
It's
do
not
a
a
lot
separate
line
thing.
adjustment and sell us that portion that he adjusts his property
Yeah.
to.
Take away that .008 that we own.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Lee, are you wanting to get a lot line adjustment regardless of whether we buy it or someone else does?
Well, not necessarily,
Okay.
because, she could apply to separate it out. The other option is that it's commercial, so typically you could put more than, it's not like residential where you can only put one dwelling on one tax lot typically. And what I mean by develop it is either build another building or pave it, put another building, and then she can rent it out, cause she's office and all of them, so. Okay?
Thanks, Mike,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Here's the cards over here. Have a good night.
Okay.
No,
Question?
Mr. Mayor, that, the last week I've been keeping track of cars that have been parking on that lot. And it's always averaging around anywhere from 10 to 21 cars.
Wow.
Now, if you parking downtown Metro, that's a $4 or $5 bill.
You know, half those people will park on the street before.
Well, and that's when we put a no parking. I mean,
It'd be,
Or we put a
it'd be good
parking
to do the
meter.
math, so let's
Yeah,
do the math.
If we do the math.
Yeah.
We can figure out whether it's worth it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. All right, we're gonna move on to section 6, staff reports. And anything from the recorder's desk?
Nothing.
Okay. Resolution, so we have let's move to item 8, resolution 20-R-03. Resolution approving and renewing Gold Valley Little League lease agreement with the city of Gold Hill.
I do have one change. I talked to them today after I sent you this copy, and I missed the line on section. There's a line that says install a water meter, but they already installed the water meter, so I took that line out.
And that's on the actual resolution.
No, it's not on the resolution, it's on the lease, but,
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, it's 2.7.
Okay.
I did print you the right ones, yeah, okay. I printed this after I fixed it, so you have the correct version, but it's not the one I emailed you on Friday. In 2.7, it originally said that they would install a water meter, but they've already installed it, so now it's just, they will
And
just
that-
pay for the water.
Can you give us a little bit of overview for someone to do a motion?
You want me to, sure, it's, I mean, it's basically
Are there
this.
any substantive changes over the previous agreement?
No, that was it. I took out, the line about the fence that was negotiated last time, because that's all been completed. Other than that, I just changed dates.
Okay,
It's really just, oh, and I changed the name of their president, because their president has changed.
okay. Well, if there are no questions, entertain a motion, please.
I just have a question. Jessica, does our public works department have any input on this? Any comments, questions, concerns, problems with the Little League field, ingress, egress, anything?
No, there aren't
Okay.
any problems with it.
Play ball.
Go ahead. I move that we approve the resolution approving and renewing the Gold Valley Little League lease agreement with the City of Gold Hill.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, roll call please, Jessica.
Counselor Hinckley,
Yes.
Counselor Palmer,
Yes.
Counselor Wilson,
Yes.
Counselor Cannon,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Studebaker.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
All right, moving on to item 10. Consent agenda. It's great to see the minutes coming back.
Yeah.
We got the audits done, now we're back. And so if everybody's reviewed that, we'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve, the Gold Hill City Council minutes for February 10th, 2020.
And February 24th.
Oh, can we do both?
Yeah.
In one? Okay, and the minutes from February 24th, 2020.
I'll second it.
John?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, corrections? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Wilson,
Yes.
Counselor Palmer, Counselor Hinckley,
Yes.
Counselor Studebaker,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Cannon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. No old business, new business. We have 12.1, approval of fiscal year 1920 plan of action to address material weaknesses
that's a
found
typo
in the
there.
audit. You ready for that, Jessica?
Sorry, that was a typo on the agenda. It's actually fiscal year 18-19,
Oh.
but I wrote that on the correct thing.
And so there were no,
So after the auditor submitted his report to the Secretary of State, in the letter that he gave to us, he addressed 5 material weaknesses, and the Secretary of State Audit Division asked me to address those. So I created a plan of action using the template that they provided me. I submitted it to the auditor. The auditor agrees with my plan of action and says that I can submit it to the state as long as you guys approve too.
The only question that I have as part of the finance committee is, are we going to be doing the reconciliation on a separate day as AP, or is it possible to combine those two things?
I was thinking we'd combine them, since we've set our APs now where we're cutting checks on the 15th and the 30th every month, and then on the 15th, when you come in to sign checks, you can review the previous month's reconciliation.
So that's like deficiency 5, is that what we're trying to?
Yes, deficiency 5.
okay, any other questions? Entertain a motion to approve.
I will motion to approve the plan of action to address material weaknesses found in the audit for fiscal year 18-19.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Debate? Okay, roll call please, Jessica.
Counselor Cannon,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Counselor Studebaker,
Yes.
Counselor Wilson,
Yes.
Counselor Palmer, Counselor Hinckley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, for 12.2, Citizen Involvement Committee, and we should probably talk about all of our committees too. We got audits done. So, who would like to
Actually,
present the citizen
Counselor
involvement?
Hinckley asked for this to be on the agenda, so this is
Okay,
hers.
would you like to lead that one?
So the Citizen Involvement Committee is actually in our charter. We don't have any of the other committees in our charter. And so I've had a number of citizens ask me about re-upping the Citizen Involvement Committee. And what that is it's a group of citizens that get together, they bring citizen concerns to the council, get things on the agenda, they can move things forward. It is exactly as it says, it's a citizen involvement committee. So there wouldn't be any people from outside of the city that would be allowed to be involved in this. Concerns that are going on in the city, things that they would like to see, projects, stuff like that. Very similar to what Can Do does, but Can Do allows people from outside of the city. And that would be something that they would really like to have back, especially since it is mandated in our stuff already. And we're entertaining the idea of things like ethics committees and stuff like that. So I was asked, well, why aren't you bringing back the Citizen Involvement Committee?
So how do people get on these committees?
There's applications online. I would make one for the Citizen Involvement Committee and put it up there just the same.
And then how do they, does the council
Yeah,
vote
do you
them
remember
on?
reading, is it a council appointment or a mayor
I believe it's, so the way it was described to me, the way that it was done before under previous administrations, it's actually why the Facebook group, the Gold Hill Soapbox, was originally created, was a communications venue for the Citizen Involvement Committee. So at this point, I don't think there's actually a structure, and that would be something that would be put together by the committee. It was explained to me that they just used to meet when the members decided that there was something that they wanted to talk about.
Well, I'd like to see what it actually says in the charter and not just go
Yeah.
by what these
Yeah.
people
Right.
say.
And
So-
that's one of the reasons why I wanted it on the thing, so that we could talk about it, we could put it out there. This is something citizens are asking for, is the Citizen Involvement Committee to be.
Did you happen to write down where it was at in the charter?
I believe that where I saw it listed was under, where was it? I wanna say it was either chapter 16 or 17, I'm not sure if it was under the.
I'll pull it out of
full-
the code book and send
Okay.
it to all of you so you have a
Okay,
copy
yeah,
of it.
please.
Speaking of the charter, I wanted to let you know something that I'm gonna try to do for November's ballot next year. The League of Oregon Cities wants all cities to move towards a council city manager form of government, which we are doing, it's just not what our charter says. And they have a model charter that they want cities to follow, so you all know there's a lot of updates that need to be made to our charter as well. So I'm gonna start working on that this year so that we can get it on the ballot next November and get our charter all squared away and stop some of these arguments that we have over.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, so.
And we should probably revisit all of the committees that Harry put
Yes.
together so that we don't have two of the same thing. So if the Citizen Involvement Committee is really something we had
Yeah.
already started, and then we should probably notice it, refresh it, get some excitement going
Yeah.
on it, and then get to work.
Mhm.
And see if there was another committee that we can blend this with.
Yeah, yeah.
That's doing the same thing.
Does that seem reasonable for everybody to start getting our committees back?
And along the line of the committee, Bee City USA, we have renewed that. Right now, Jessica and I are in the process of trying to see what citizens that were previously on that board still want to be on that board. Because there are things that we do actually have to do actively as a city to belong to Bee City USA.
Yeah, we have to look at our fertilizers and.
Right, we have to look at our
Insect-
fertilizers, invasive
pesticides.
species
Have
versus
awareness
native
events.
species, awareness events. I'm putting together an extensive page on the website to educate people about what they should and should not plant in their yards, things like that.
Okay. All right, any other comments on committee stuff? All right, let's move on to 12.3, requisition for COVID-19 protective equipment.
And this one is Counselor Studebaker's.
So, we all know about COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
And I just got stuck someplace for 2 months, so I'm particularly tuned into this. As we all know, there are 3 phases under the governor's plan. 1 through 3, we're currently in 1, where that allows us with spacing to be here together. We're supposed to be all wearing masks, and I think technically hand sanitizer coming in and going out. And so it seems to me that it's reasonable that we can approach the county to see if they have a supply of that, as opposed to us floating up. You know, it's tough to get some of these things. Tom Brooks, you all may know, our dentist in town, he's having to do all kinds of additional things, but he's having a heck of a time getting hold of things. So if the county, public health department has additional or some set aside for the communities, you know, they can just say no. But I would think, I'd like to go to the Jackson County and say, we wanna be in compliance with the governor's plan. We currently are not. Can you help us out with hand sanitizers, masks, and probably antiseptic wipes?
Go for it.
And we may just get one, but masks are really tough to come by. So if we could get just that, that would be a huge one.
So to be clear, we're asking for PPE specifically, not asking for grant money
No,
to buy PPE.
no. If they wanna give us grant money instead, I suppose that would be turned down. But the problem is getting, you can't source it right now.
Yeah.
Apply it towards the web water.
I mean, that was really kind of my main concern with this, and my major question is, if we're asking for money, I don't think it should be put towards PPE, but if we're asking if they have stocks of PPE, and we would like some, that I can see.
You know, there's a lot of stuff going subterranean. The state of Oregon has 1.4 billion with a B dollars just to be dealing with this problem. So there's lots of money for COVID stuff. According to the OHA, Jackson County had 15 contact tracing nurses for 100,000. We need another 15 nurses, so that's, you know, 120K, 150 with benefits times 15.
So let's say that we-
Having a hard time getting the money out of state of Oregon, though.
Colleen
Well,
Roberts was up
yeah.
there right now.
Let's say they
But
do have stuff to give
they
us,
have-
how do we decide who to give it to? What's gonna be,
Well, you know, it seems to me that, we
25.
certainly could be offering it up in the front counter.
yeah,
If people come in to meet with you, they should have a mask on. I guess I think it's up to the worker bee. In some offices, they're wearing these things, and many they are not. But if you guys have to be wearing them, hey, that's, you know, that's a real expense, that adds up, 20 days a month. We may be doing this another 2-3 months.
Yeah, and Jessica, can you kind of coach us for future meetings on the 25-person rule? So what's reasonable in this room for the next meeting?
the same thing. I'm not gonna, my plan is not to open City Hall back up until we at least hit phase 2, because that should expand the number of groups, and then we can have people in here.
Because we're at 11 right now, and so.
But I can't predict how many people are gonna show up from the public. Sometimes they get,
Yeah, I
there's a
agree
huge
with
crowd
you.
in
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
And then how do you determine who you turn away versus
Yeah.
who you let in? I mean,
You
that,
could do a sign-up sheet, do the first 10, or whatever.
You can't even fit 10, you could maybe fit 4 or 5 people,
Where are we
and
gonna
have them
put
6
people
people.
in here?
Yeah, exact
Six
space.
apart.
I mean, then you'd have to go every other row and
We
have them
can,
at opposite.
we can put more than 0 though.
You know?
well,
Right, true.
I think we should just leave it to.
Yeah.
I think the
Online
other
for
thing
now.
that really bothers me, we have a very
Well,
large elderly community
well,
in this
We
town.
don't have to worry about it.
And I think
Hey, Tom, Daniela has the comment here.
we have a very large elderly community in this town, and I think that it would be irresponsible to open up City Hall and potentially expose that community to a virus that disproportionately affects them.
Yep.
So I think that, maintaining a closed City Hall just bypasses any kind of an exposure risk that we might have in here. I mean, as we walk in the door, even touching the door handle to go in and out, unless we want Jessica and Dwayne to be there sanitizing that door handle for every single citizen that's gonna walk in and out of here that might potentially touch that door and then touch their face, I feel it's too risky to open it up.
All right, any other
Yeah, I agree.
arguments?
I agree.
All right, so
Lock her
next,
up.
next meeting then would be June
June 1st.
June 1st. And so, do you want to keep it closed to citizens and keep operating with a conservative
I mean,
agenda?
we're broadcasting to the public. If anybody wants to be on the public input, there are multiple ways to reach us to be put on the agenda like that. So, yeah, I say we keep going the way we're doing it.
And are there any educated guesses on phase 2 timing?
Well, phase 2 is supposed to start after we've been in phase 1 for 21 days. However, since the judge in the courtroom today ruled that the governor's executive order is null and void, it
be
could
next
mean all kinds of things. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
And then what
Because they
power-
didn't do a stay, so,
This is the church ruling,
yes.
or they just said out.
So I really don't know if that means we're still technically in phase 1 and if that counter is still going.
But we still have our local control. We can decide locally, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's up to our council. So, do we need to, put this on the agenda for the next one to decide how to proceed, or do you just wanna do a consensus that we're gonna keep it closed until we feel like opening it?
Well, right now, I know that the governor is planning to go to the state Supreme Court to ask for a stay of the order until the legislature can meet to determine whether or not they want to go forward. So I don't think it's appropriate to make a decision until the Supreme Court has ruled on whether or not they're going to allow a stay. Because we might make a decision and the Supreme Court says, well, nope, we're gonna keep this order, and then any decisions that we make are overridden by the Supreme Court. So I think going forward, just, we're in phase one until they make that decision.
Okay, any other questions on that? Advice?
Well, I have a statement dealing with the COVID-19 virus. We had an incident on Sunday, an establishment here in town, had 40-plus people in it with a band. I called the sheriff's department to get advice. He flat turned it down. I just want you to know that next time it comes around for his contract. And I ended up calling the Oregon Health Care, or the Oregon Health Authority, and then they directed me to OSHA. I ended up calling OSHA. And OSHA goes, I see what you're doing, everybody's doing the same thing. They're passing the buck. He goes, however, this is what you need to do. So a claim was filed against the establishment in our town, and OSHA is gonna proceed on that claim. So if you have any things like that, as a counselor and the mayor of this town, you see stuff, we have to put an end to it. If we have to abide by these rules and regulations, so does our town. That's just all there is to it. But the establishment I'm talking about is Lucky's. They're just totally out of control on that. Long Branch even brought in electricians to move their machines apart 6 feet. And they have a person on hand, 2 people on hand that are wiping down. People can't approach the bar.
Yeah.
But Lucky's just.
That other bar, shut down their, going up to the bar, you have to get tables. So that's spreading people out. So 2 out of 3 are taking it seriously.
But it only takes one to get us all sick.
Okay.
No, well,
Daniela?
Counselor Palmer, since you had to go through that process, can you please email me exactly what the process that you had to go through was, so that if a citizen
Yes.
sees another thing, there's something up there that says, this is who you call?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very simple.
All right,
Once it's done.
any other guidelines we haven't talked about related to COVID that we need to educate people about? So it's 25, is it 25 for the city or 25 for any
It's 25 for any public gathering.
group?
Yep.
And then anything else with restaurants?
I mean, everything is supposed to be 6 feet apart, so.
Okay, all right, any other COVID thoughts before we move on?
One of the things that I did want to mention, with the COVID thing, if we are going to be requesting any kind of funding, I would like to potentially consider asking for funding from the county, if there is any money to be had, to reduce the cost of utility bills and to supplement those utility bills that were not able to be paid over these last 2 to 3 months by people who were put on unemployment, by businesses that have gone out of business that still had those utility bills going forward. It upsets me greatly to see Stacy Macy not there on Main Street. And if we are going to be looking for money funding, I think that that should be one of our top priorities, is trying to mitigate the utility costs to our citizens
And businesses?
and businesses.
What do you think about that, Jessica?
I think that's a great idea.
So for citizens, businesses, anything else? Folks, totally?
Well, I would really like to look at the utility bills, because that is something that we have control over.
Yeah.
And if there's grants to be had to mitigate those utility costs for some of our lower income residents, for some of our residents that were put on forced unemployment due to this, I think it's something to consider. And I think it's something to look into to see whether or not there is money out there to be had for them.
Yeah, and we have been waiving late fees, and we're not shutting anybody off due to non-payment, because everybody needs running water so they can stay clean and sanitary, so.
All right, cool. Good talk. All right, 12.4, Whitewater Center Olympic bid update. Any idea where we are, Steve, on the whole process?
Okay, I'm still Steve Kiesler. And anyway, where we are right now is, we had the support for the governor sending that letter to the LAOC, and that you all read the draft, and then it disappeared into the machinery, and of course, that takes a while, but it was ready to go, and then it didn't go because the other things happened. And then, anyway, and Pete, as part of the sort of celebration thing, I don't know how this all happened, but this story ended up running on the Oregon Public Broadcasting, and actually made a real impact. They got picked up by NBC, and the Tribune's doing a piece and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of raises the question, and the other thing that happened was Travel Southern Oregon, which has been funding a lot of this, saw that and they got all excited, so we had a meeting the other day. Where we are specifically with building the park is that we had to redesign the playwave and then rewrite the draft biological opinion. That finally got done, and those things, that was kind of the last of the expensive outside expert stuff that before writing the permits. And so the next big chunk of change is $20,000, which we're trying to come up with to actually write the permits. It's for the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of State Lands and one other, wetlands thing. So basically, it's trying to find money for that, moving the project forward to get these permits done before the end of the year. My sense is that at this moment, Gold Hill does not have money to spend on this kind of thing. I mean, it would be great if we do, but my guess is that that's hard to come by. I mean, Gold Hill actually funded the original mapping of the river that started this. That was 10 years ago, whatever. It was $10,000. But anyway, we're trying to raise that money. But the real thing that came out of all this is that the better story is not the governor of Oregon saying, "Hey, LA, you should come and do this." And there are good reasons for it. We know that. I mean, it is going to save LA an enormous amount of money. And right now, LA is freaking out because Tokyo is losing its shirts. I mean, not Tokyo, but Tokyo, because that Olympics may get canceled. And so the LAOC is going, okay, how do we save money? So this is a good time to be saying, oh, by the way, we can take $1,500 million off your plate. But it really turns out that the best pitch that Pete came up with is that it's a better pitch from the city of Gold Hill, I mean, with the governor, but the little town of Gold Hill, a town of 1,000 people, basically pitching the Olympics, just like like Paris and LA and Tokyo. And I mean, that's a good story. And in the depths or the beginning of what looks like, a real recession, having a little town that actually stands up and says, hey, guys, let's do something good. And so that's, that's something that is an opportunity for the town and for the council specifically to be part of this pitch. And actually, it means picking somebody to go to LA to make this presentation, but also the first thing is, drafting a letter basically based on what the governor, that governor's note, but the same thing. So working with the governor. And one of the things I might add to this is that the only way the Olympic team is not a kumbaya group at all. I mean, I was in a boat at the World Championships, and we were a very fast boat, but we did not like each other. We had great differences of opinion. In fact, the fastest strokes we ever wrote were 12 strokes. Where we spelled out an obscenity that's 12 letters long. It was basically aimed at each other because we were so mad, but we went so fast. And I know there's a lot of politics stuff of people on different sides of things, but this is actually about pitching the Olympics and bringing it to this town. And it could happen just like it happened on the Ocoee River in Tennessee for the Atlanta Games. And so, I mean, it's a chance for us to actually, you know, at least make the pitch. Send somebody to LA and, you know, play with those guys for a little bit, and maybe even pull it off, because we could save them so much money.
And Ed Miller, the way he designed that last, the HGTV makeover, town makeover, was what they put together that last video for. He designed it so that that a lot of the core footage could be repurposed. So there's, I think, 3 minutes of this, which is specifically completely appropriate for your usage, that I'm sure you would be willing to provide and add some stuff in and make it all sexy. And so then you would end up with a customized, really well done, I think, professional video presentation of, we're presuming you would be our spokesperson in LA. So you or whomever
Well,
ends up with.
I think also we need somebody from the council, I mean, or Pete or the mayor or whatever, somebody, but,
Yeah, I have a question about timeline. Daniela?
So here's my issue, because I'm actually the one that asked for this to be put on the agenda. We barely have support for the White Water Park. There are a number of citizens that are extremely angry that this was presented to Oregon Public Broadcasting as though the Olympic bid was coming from the city, that it was just assumed that citizens wanted the Olympics here. There are a number of citizens who do not want the Olympics here. There is a number of reports that talk about the damage to infrastructure, the damage to small towns that have been done by the Olympics coming in, not to mention the monetary and economic destruction that can happen to a small town. Everybody is acting as though this is a done deal. I don't ever remember voting on the city of Gold Hill to put in an Olympic bid. So the fact that it was presented to radio stations and to news outlets as though this was a city of Gold Hill backed idea and bid rather than a private endeavor angers me beyond angry, because my constituents do not support the Olympics coming here to Gold Hill. They barely support a whitewater park. They do not want this to be a tourist town. They do not want people trampling through their parks that they pay for. They do not want their roads and their water infrastructure destroyed that is barely hanging on right now. They do not want their sports park to be used as a parking lot for the whitewater park or for an Olympic bid. So I think it's very rude and very arrogant that this is just going on and being presented as though it's a done deal without putting it to our citizens, without giving them the opportunity to vote on it and having a say. And especially that this was presented during a pandemic when we have limited public input, when they don't have the opportunity to come up here and protest the things that they don't agree with, when it's their tax dollars that are going to pay for the infrastructure in this town, and they feel like they aren't being heard, and they feel like this council, and especially transplants from California, are running over the people who were born and raised here, who bought property here, and they feel like this council isn't listening to them.
All right, thank you.
Can I-
And so the counter argument is there are a lot of people that do want it.
And so we should put it to a vote of the people.
What was the vote that we addressed that whole issue, asking for support from the governor? Wasn't
For the
that?
white water park.
No,
Not for an
that
Olympic.
actually, there was a draft of the letter
Yeah,
to
just
the
for the draft.
LAOC, which, and it went to everybody. And, you know, we didn't actually, you know, Oregon Public Broadcasting, we didn't go to them. It's that the letter came here, everybody read it, and believe me, you know, this is what, to actually, I can't think of any small town in the world that's ever been hurt by the Olympics. I mean, there's Lake Placid.
Ventura, California.
Pardon?
Ventura, California. It was a nearby town to the last time that LA came in. It was a sleepy little river town. that the citizens wanted it to remain a sleepy little river town. And then after the Olympics, Ocean Town. And then after the Olympics, investors came in. It's now a tourist town. It's now a tourist destination. And the people who were born and raised there, who owned property there, wound up having to sell their property and move away because the cost of living skyrocketed.
All right, thank you.
I-
Janet, you had some comments? Go ahead.
No, I got nothing.
I just want to clarify about this draft letter. It's in the minutes that you guys just approved. You brought this